So I saw Console Truth's video, and the reason I didn't respond to your video right away is because I only saw it a couple days ago, and I thought it'd be interesting because I like talking about language, even though I think pronunciation doesn't really matter in the long run because it really doesn't. I mean, think about it. The entirety of our nation has three ways of saying Coke. Here in the South and the southern western United States, we call it Coke. That's the generic name for soft drinks is Coke. A little northern, like even in California up in north, and Washington, Oregon, Wyoming, all that stuff. I think even in Nevada, they call it pop or soda. And I know for the fact that the East Coast calls it like there's just mixtures and variations. But for the most part, we all call it down here Coke. Pronunciation doesn't really mean anything because it's colloquial. And that's what I don't get about people from Nevada. Because in Reno, I've never heard anyone call it Nevada. It's always been Nevada. Only in Las Vegas I've ever heard it called Nevada. And it's just interesting to see how your arguments for this because they're a little bit ridiculous. You're like, here in the United States, we all speak English. Well, only 100 years ago, that wasn't even near the case. I mean, in my generation, in my immediate family, there's people who remember a time where English was not spoken on the western half of the United States. For example, I guess you don't know this because you're white and this didn't really happen probably to your family, but here in New Mexico, my grandmother, when she went to school, if she spoke any Spanish, because you see, the United States federal government used to be very racist, and they wanted everyone to speak English to make it easier for them. So if my grandmother or any other Hispanic children or people who spoke Spanish in class, they were beat severely. It was punishment, and that continued even with my father. But instead of beating, it was markdowns on grades. And then in my generation, if you didn't speak English, if you were only a Spanish speaker, you were sent to another classroom and even held back a couple years until you could read English or at least have somewhat could do English. Only the generation after mine has speaking Spanish become appropriate and that people are allowed to do it. So, and you can see that even reflective in the culture, even reflective in my own family. My great grandmother didn't speak a lick of English and could only kind of read and write it. My grandmother was completely bilingual because she had to be. She spoke Spanish at home and spoke English abroad. Just, spoke English whenever she was out of the house because it was looked down upon not to speak English. My father is bilingual, but he can't really write Spanish. Then you have me, who can basically only order food and do very, very basic Spanish. I can't really speak the language. If I went to Mexico, I'd be lost for a couple months. You see, and then the generation after mine, some of my cousins, they can't speak Spanish at all. They don't know any Spanish. So the transformation from a trilingual country like the United States used to be, where there were three major languages spoken here, which were Spanish, French, and English, and that was only like 100 years ago, they were literally beaten out of us until we all spoke pretty much English. But that doesn't change the fact the word is still Spanish. You see, one issue I had with you is that you keep saying, well, it's the English version. There's no English version of Nevada. Nevada is a Spanish word. At least with Mexico and Texas, you'd be kind of correct, because New Mexico and Texas have modified their spelling to reflect the English pronunciation. Those are now English words. Mexico is an English word. Texas is an English word. They've been modified. But Nevada is still Spanish. It's still Spanish pronunciation. And Florida is Spanish too, and people still pronounce it Florida. It's still pronounced the Spanish way of pronouncing it. Nevada is the only one that is still spelled exactly how it was in Spanish, but people are still stingy about how to pronounce it. I mean, and it's not necessarily a problem with you, but I know during the 2004 election, President Bush was hammered on by people from Nevada for saying Nevada wrong. Because they said, oh, you need to say Nevada, not Nevada. Even though Nevada and Nevada are pretty similar in pronunciation. So, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of the people from Nevada, well, I shouldn't say that, a lot of people from Las Vegas, and even Las Vegas is a Spanish pronunciation. It's not English. It's not even anglicized. It's Las Vegas. So, I don't understand why people from Las Vegas really, really hate that. Because everywhere else I've been in Nevada, including Reno, it's Nevada. It's not Nevada. Only in Las Vegas have I ever had someone correct me or get angry at me or even get angry at me over the internet. Because I know it was like an indirect response to me. But you're not saying it correctly. There's no English version of the word Nevada. And the only reason the majority of people in the western half of the United States speak majority English is because it's literally been beaten out of us. In all actual reality, if if it was never done, if the school system didn't force English upon us, me and you would probably be speaking Spanish over YouTube right now. Because it was almost 50%. It was like 43, 48. Somewhere around there, it was Spanish. Spanish for a while almost became the majority language. But, a lot of people didn't like that. And that's why we now speak English. Samuel out.